Hi guys, this is Hero. How's everyone doing today? So today I'm going over Mercury's debilitated but retrograde transit in the sign of Pisces. Okay, this is really interesting because the whole time, not only is it debilitated but retrograde, but it's pretty closely conjunct of Venus, who's exalted but retrograde. Okay, so the mix of these is kind of interesting. I already kind of made a separate video on the Venus, so you can watch that. And I would also strongly encourage you to watch my exalted retrograde or debilitated retrograde video that I just made like maybe 4 or 5 days ago. Okay, that is going to really explain how exalted or debilitated planets act when they're retrograde. But anyways, if you watch it, you watch it. If not, you're not. Whatever. Moving forward. So Mercury, right? Let's lay the foundation. So it gets debilitated in Pisces. Why? Mercury is the sign of rational intelligence. Okay, Pisces is a sign of detachment. So when Mercury is in Pisces, it gets debilitated. Debilitated is basically the spiritually worst direct placement for a planet. So why is being detached so bad for Mercury? Well, when it comes to the standpoint of your rational intelligence, you want to be as focused and kind of almost borderline attached as possible, right? Imagine you take an exam and you show up there all lost, didn't study, possibly no sleep the night before, partied, played video games all night long, whatever, right? It's not good, okay? You're going to fail your exam a lot, or you're going to feel really stressed out, maybe, and probably, and it's not going to be a fun time, okay? So it'd be a lot better if you just studied and did everything properly, right? So that's kind of why the Mercury gets debilitated here. Now, how does it act when it's retrograde? The scriptures say a debilitated but retrograded planet kind of gives exalted like effects, and an exalted but retrograde planet kind of gives debilitated like effects. So Mercury here is debilitated. Now it gets retrograde. Well, what is retrograde? Retrograde is basically, in a 2-second sentence, a hyperfixation of the planet. Okay, I have a separate retrograde video. You can watch that also if you just want to know more about retrograde. Now, why does hyperfixating this Mercury in this position affect this? Well, imagine a student, right? Imagine a student is Mercury, and it's in Pisces. So imagine a student, it lives in this really shitty neighborhood. It goes to this really crappy school. It's not properly funded. No one gives a shit about what the kid's doing, whatever, right? Kid doesn't even give a shit about what he's doing, okay? Now imagine you hyperfixate the planet. Imagine like somehow magically, like something gets slapped on this kid's desk one day and this is like, hey, this is your 10-year engineering plan to finish high school and college. Gotta follow it, right? This is going to be really good for that kid. And from a spiritual standpoint, it's probably going to be the spiritually best directing for the kid, right? So the debilitation doesn't go away. The kid's still, at the trash school and stuff like that. Maybe doesn't really have parents who are monitoring him or her that well. But, the retrograde is what kind of saves the debilitation, right? That's not really the best word, but it's making it as spiritually fruitful as possible in this position, okay? Now, so that's great here, right? It's now you can kind of see. So Mercury, your rational intelligence is lost, but your rational intelligence is also kind of getting hyper-focused or hyper-fixated in certain ways, which can be great, right? Some things you accomplish in life, you really want to do them, but your head kind of gets in the way. You still need your head, but certain parts of your head kind of get in the way. This is a great time to, I'm not going to say a great time because of some other factors that I'll talk about in this video because it's conjunct a few other planets here. But in general, a situation like this on paper could be a great time without considering any of the other factors. A great time to kind of accomplish or start on some of these missions, okay? Especially with Mercury and Aries coming around the corner. You kind of do certain things that your brain was kind of holding you back on. And then in Aries, you kind of, have like a fresh start now that you've kind of got out of your comfort zone here, okay? Now, the Mercury is debilitated but retrograde, but it is neck and neck with a Venus who's exalted but retrograde. Okay, so how does this so close? And I already made the video on Venus retrograde already, so you can watch that if you want, if you just want to see how that's doing. But in general, right, the Venus is the sign of enjoyment. I mean, it's the planet of enjoyment, and it's in the sign of detachment, as you know. So when your enjoyment gets exalted in Pisces, why? Because your enjoyment, it's at its spiritually highest state when it just feels loose, right? Imagine you're just, just real laid back, not really, thinking too much about when you enjoy, possibly under the influence or with like your closest family and friends, things like that, right? It's a really great time. Now, when it's retrograde, it's basically hyperfixating, right? Imagine, you're enjoying, but you're like, man, I just really need more alcohol, or I just really wanted an Italian food, or I really need these friends here to enjoy better, right? This is kind of like a buzzkill for the Venus, okay? So now, this exalted but retrograde Venus, how does it impact this Mercury, right? This is the first closest influence here. Okay, so we have this lost but hyperfixated Mercury. And we have this, let's just pretend Venus was just exalted. It's not retrograde, but it's just exalted, right? So we have this loose sense of enjoyment that's close to Mercury, right? Because we know the retrograde doesn't cancel out the debilitation or exalted. At the end of the day, the Venus is still exalted, right? So how does this exalted Venus impact the Mercury? Okay, the Mercury feels lost. The exalted Venus could kind of prevent it from overthinking. Okay, it's just like, dude, just relax, do your thing, enjoy, right? So that on paper, this is really good. You have a debilitated retrograde planet with that's exalted planet in that same sign. This is like super good. Now, unfortunately, the Venus here is retrograde. Now, like I said, the retrograde doesn't completely cancel away from the exaltation, but the retrograde for Venus, it's causing it to hyperfixate. So how does this impact the Mercury? Well, it could basically make the Mercury like overthink in a sense. Okay, so the exaltation, it's making the Mercury more relaxed and free-flowing, but the retrograde is also making it overthink. You could be relaxed and overthink at the same time. You could drink alcohol or smoke and be overthinking more, right? Like, I hope you kind of see that here. Okay, maybe for some of you guys who haven't had certain crazy wild experiences, this might be a little bit hard to wrap your head around. But I hope that makes sense. This is such a interesting mesh that's the only way I can really explain it here. So that's kind of how it's impacting this Mercury here, right? Now, it's also going to cross the sun, right? And then it's going to end with the Rahu. Okay, so throughout the first couple weeks of this transit, the sun's influence will kind of pick up, and then the next two, the Rahu's influence, or the next 1.5 weeks, Rahu's influence will kind of pick up, right? So the sun here, it kind of makes Mercury feel like whatever it's doing, it's pointless. It's not really serving a purpose, right? Because the sun kind of feels lost, right? But Mercury, at the end of the day, it's just orbiting around the sun. It never gets too far from the sun. It's almost kind of like, the sun's little sidekick. To an extent it is, right? Like, to an extent. So it kind of just makes it feel like whatever it does is purposeless. So you need to watch out for that. So there's certain things, like I said, in life that, they're great to accomplish, but your rational intelligence kind of gets in the way. But that sun here could make it feel like it's purposeless. Or because there's a Rahu here, and I'll discuss a little bit more about Rahu later, it could make it feel like there's some stuff that you just got to make happen. It's now or never in order to get our sense of purpose back. Okay, so that's also another thing. Now, the Rahu, what does Rahu do? It blows everything out of proportion, right? So this Venus and Mercury is just slowly going backwards towards this Rahu, right? So this Rahu, from Mercury's perspective, could make it feel like, you're stupid. Or that you're actually smarter than like you ever were ever. Now that, your brain is a little bit more loose and free-flowing and things like that. Now, you can see how no matter what you pick, they're both a disaster, okay? So just watch out for that. When it comes to anything Rahu-related, you need to stay grounded, okay? Especially since the Venus is there, you have a tendency to just be enjoying more, especially since the Venus is retrograde. The things that you do try to enjoy, you're going to be kind of really hammering in on them more. Okay, you have these two retrograde planets, one exalted, one debilitated, approaching this Rahu with the sun right there, right? This is like an egotistical, carnival here, right? All the material planets are just, hunker down in the sign of detachment, and two of them that could possibly be retrograde are retrograde. And those two happen to also be exalted and debilitated also, right? So you just need to be very careful about what it is you stop and what it is you start, okay? A quick thing here. Meditation is key, okay? Your mind could be all over the place like moving water. Okay, imagine your mind is literally like moving water, right? Pisces is literally a water sign. In order to make the water still, you imagine your brain is like a pool of water, right? I can't just, oh, the water's moving around a lot. Let me, try to undo it by, trying to moving the water around more to kind of make it stop. Let's just say the water's moving left. Does it make sense if I just start moving the water right and hope it'll stop? No, right? The water's just gonna start moving all over the place, right? You just gotta let it calm, get still. Understand that possibly the water's not gonna really stop moving for real. But you just gotta understand that's also a major take-home message here. Okay, so this video just approached 11 minutes. That's it. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the comment section or you can send me an email. Okay, but that's it for this video. Till next time, I'll talk to everyone later. Thank you all very, very much for watching.